Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon, and welcome to the post 47, How to Manage the Critics. Okay, you've got your mission statement, you've put your goals in place, you're managing procrastination, you know what you can control and what you can't control. We are winning, except you've got some criticism coming your way. You know that woman at work who, whenever you're doing anything, offers her commentary on it. You know the bloke at the gym when you're doing your cardio and he's trying to convince you that you need to enroll in CrossFit. And then, of course, there's your dad that every particular family barbecue you attend, he likes to share with everybody that you're never going to get a real job. Now, in most actions in our life, from housework to paid work, there is somebody who is wanting to offer a comment about what we are doing, and more frequently, a comment about who we are. Now, these comments hurt. That's absolutely true. We take it personally because frequently they are hyper-personal. But why I'm more concerned about them in our coaching series is that these comments can deflect you from your goal. So there's you, there's your goal, there's success. And these comments and criticisms are blocking you, deflecting you from achieving your goal. So we have to address them. And also, you're losing life. You're losing time with worry or fear or jealousy or anger. But how do you manage the critics? Well, this week I've certainly engaged with some rather odd reading. It's been what I would describe as uneven. But from this uneven reading, I've gathered up 10 strategies for us to think about how to manage the critics. And I'm well aware that there are people watching this today that you are managing this on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, right? Some random is offering commentary about you all the time. Well, the strategies today will intervene and interfere in how that person is running and ruling your emotional life. So let me give you a couple of examples about how serious this can be. And I know both of these cases pretty personally. The first comes from my beloved late husband, Professor Steve Redhead. He was a very, very senior professor in a particular school, and other senior professors were behaving disgracefully with him. And let me give you a sense of this disgrace. They started to put excrement inside his office door. So he would open the door each morning to commence work, and there would be excrement sitting nicely on the carpet in front of him, just so he would take one step and he might step in it. Now, the Vice-Chancellor knew about that behaviour, the then Pro-Vice-Chancellor knew about that behaviour, and nobody did anything. Let me give you another example, again from my particular workplace. I'd been there a long time, and near the end of the period I was there, some very bad stuff started to happen with a particular head of school. Whenever I would try to leave my office, so I would be leaving my office to go and deliver a lecture or go and deliver a tutorial or to go to the toilet, I would have this head of school shout at me down the corridor, telling me to get back into my office, and using this horrific phrase, "I pay you, your body is mine." Now, students, colleagues would be hearing this, and again, nobody did anything. Now, I'm not unusual. There's nothing unusual about the stories I've told from Steve or myself, because if you get to a certain age, all of us have hundreds of these stories where people in workplaces, but everywhere, have behaved disgracefully. So what are we going to do? Well, here we go. You're with me? Let's do this. 10 strategies about how to handle this. And by the way, they're sort of in order too. So if you're in a bad place now, you could follow these ideas in order and get yourself into a better place. So let's start with number 1. Distinguish between fair and unfair criticism. So when someone offers a commentary about us or about our behavior, the first response is anger or fear or embarrassment or confusion, right? And the best strategy I beg of you to try is to park all your emotions. Visualize, you've got all these hot emotions, and visualize them slowly draining from your body. So drain the comment or the criticism of emotion, even if it was saturated with sarcasm. And start to take the criticism as a neutral statement, a collection of words, a sentence. So fair criticism, we hope, is delivered in a careful, respectful, compassionate way. It focuses on facts and evidence, and at its best, it offers you some assistance to move forward and activate and action that criticism. So fair criticism is brilliant. It improves us and we learn. But also something I learned in my 20s, which may be of use to you, is always be the first person to acknowledge a mistake. Now, this is quite important. So if you have made a mistake, if you've made an error, then front up at the moment you realize the error has occurred. So I am so sorry, I have made this error, I understand what I did wrong, and I will make sure it doesn't happen again. The gift of you being the first person to acknowledge the error is if someone's about to activate unfair criticism, they can't use your mistake against you. So basically, you've cut off the legs of that criticism. So fair criticism helps you improve. Park the tone. The person could be having a bit of a bad day, and treat it as a learning experience, learn from it, make an improvement, and then move on. Now, unfair criticism is very, very different. It's delivered with anger and passion and aggression and rage. There's no evidence for it. There are no facts involved, and generalizations are activated. It is personal, hyper personal, and it's not about workplace decisions or issues or determinations. So firstly, number one thing you need to do is make a decision about whether this is fair criticism or unfair criticism. If it's unfair criticism, you need to get it out of your life. Use the windscreen wipers we've talked about a lot, and I know this is hard to do. And therefore, that is my second strategy to handle criticism. Here we go. Never feel defensive. When we are confronted by criticism, particularly unfair criticism, we all have a tendency to behave emotionally in response, right? How dare you? You have no right to speak to me like that. You don't have a right to speak to any other human like this. Who do you think you are? Okay, now can I say, and this changed my life when I realized this, you need to get rid of that emotion. You need to get rid of it, because the person that is wielding that criticism wants your emotion. They are feeding off your emotion. They want you embarrassed, ashamed, frightened. Don't give it to them. Firstly, work out if it's fair or unfair criticism, then that's the end of it. You need to close down all emotion before you deliver your response. And when they say the unsayable to you, I want you to smile and say, thank you for the feedback. So smile, thank you for the feedback. And that's it. Now, this works incredibly well in a public environment too. You'll find in meetings, it happens in meetings, someone says the most dreadful thing to another human being, and everybody in the meeting goes, oh. And then what you need to do is drain emotion from your body, look at the person, smile, and say, thank you for the feedback. And then you're out. So this initial response is the most important one, so you need to practice it. Now, if you're alive, some random is going to behave dreadfully with you. We know that. One of the sad consequences, I think, of social media, and there are great consequences of social media, but one of the negative responses of social media is that people now are able to say the unsayable. And people talk all the time about freedom of speech. Yeah, freedom of speech, if that's your thing, great. I'm more interested in the freedom to read, to be frank. But freedom of speech, sadly now, is being used as an excuse to say something dreadful to another human being. So practice in the mirror, smile and say, thank you for the feedback. Remember that unfair criticism is unfair. You have done nothing wrong. You need to hear me. You have done nothing wrong. All you have done is live and breathe. And for some people, your life and your breath upsets them. So stay calm, and in response to often outrageous criticism and commentary, reply, thank you for the feedback. Out. 3, don't hit reply to that email immediately. Email is the crack cocaine of criticism. People write the most dreadful things in emails that they would never say to your face. And after we read these appalling emails, we metaphorically want to take them out into the car park and do some damage. I understand that. Now, don't. You've got one of those emails. Now, the first thing you have to do, once more, is decide if it is fair or unfair criticism. Now, if it's fair criticism, the tone might be a bit wonky, but if it's fair criticism, then draft that email. Thank the person for their view and for their advice. Apologize if you are in the wrong. That is crucial. And then present clear steps to the person about how you're going to make good, how you're going to address the issue that they have raised. And then go and do it and iteratively return to them and write another email and explain how you've made those changes. Okay. But when you write that email in response to fair criticism that's a bit nasty, then write the email, but then go and make a cup of coffee, chuck a lap of the building, and then come back and make sure that your tone in response is respectful. And if you like, get a mate, get a friend to check the tone of that email before you press send. Now, if someone has written an outrageous email filled with absolute rubbish, appalling stuff. Now, in some of my jobs, I've got one of those a day. Okay, so some randoms had 5 gin and tonics and then they're having a chat about what they think about women, right? Okay, so you get those emails. Okay, now reply with one word. Noted. Noted. Again, before you send the noted, make yourself a cup of coffee, chuck a lap around the building and read their email again to make sure you haven't misinterpreted what they are saying. And once you've gone, okay, right, it is as crazy as I thought it was, it is nasty, just reply with a noted and then send that response. Now, if the message, the crazy one, the unfair criticism, contains stuff like racism or xenophobia or transphobia, that sort of stuff, ageism, then what I need you to do is think on it. Think on that email through the day. And talk about that email with a colleague or with your line manager and decide if that email needs to be reported to HR or people and culture so that the person can receive some assistance and some mentoring and some coaching about professional communication. And do this nicely and respectfully. So if you do send it on to HR, say, look, I have received this email, I have responded to this email, but I just want to make sure that this colleague receives some support and some advice so that they know that these types of terms, this vocabulary is inappropriate to a workplace and the requirements of professional communication are different. Now, I never used to do this. Up to 10 years ago, I just used to do the Brabazon noted and get on with my life. The reason why I made the change 10 years ago is I used to see the people who used to say the unsayable to me, and then they'd go on and say the unsayable to other people, including students. And these people went on to really suffer greatly. I'm tough. I'm robust, I can put up with anything, but it's not fair that other humans have to put up with that stuff. So it is important that you recognize unfair criticism, particularly when it's delivered via email. Know that this is not about you. Reply with noted and then suggest through people and culture that the person receives some attention and some care and some modelling about professional communication. Cool. 4. Oh yeah. Repeat the criticism back to them. Occasionally, when we receive unfair criticism, it's from a line manager or a boss. Now, the first thing to remember is everybody has a bad day. So the greatest bosses in the universe have maybe not slept well, all sorts of things might be happening in their lives, in their working day, and they say something a bit dreadful and it's to you and that's unusual and you don't know what to do with that. Can I say the best line managers, the best bosses, when they do that, within 2 hours they phoned you up or they come and see you and say, I'm so sorry about that. I just had a bit of a brain explosion. I'm back. That wasn't about you. That was about me. Classy, fantastic. But if you have received criticism from a supervisor or a boss or a line manager, you can smile and say thank you for the feedback, but that might not work too well. The best strategy I've used with line managers, with bosses, when something's coming in, so it's criticism, is to repeat the criticism back to them. So if you're meeting your boss and they're normally lovely and tremendous and terrific, and then something bonkers comes out, then you need to take a breath, drain your body of emotion, and use the following language. Thank you for your feedback. So just to make sure that I'm clear about the issue, can I repeat back to you what I'm hearing and we can see if we're actually agreeing on this? And then you repeat their criticism back to them in their own words. Now, the benefit of this strategy, and it has a lot of benefits, can I say, the first is it buys you a little bit of time. So you can decide if it is fair or unfair criticism. And if you repeat it back to the person and it sounds bonkers, then it probably is. So I'll give you an example. So I was once a head of school and my line manager said to me, and this is a real quote, "You don't express enough emotion at work. I never know what you're thinking." Okay, now I thought this was pretty weird at the time. I thought it was verging on to the bonkers, but I thanked her for her feedback and then I said, look, could I just repeat back to you what I've heard so I'm clear, so I can create action there. So you're suggesting to me that I'm not expressing emotion at work and you want me to express emotion at work so you know what I'm thinking. Now I asked her, right, so that's what you want. So you want me to bring more emotion to my decision making. I apologize, I haven't done that. I've been making decisions on the basis of evidence because the last head of school, as you know, created insider and outsider groups and created a very emotional and angry department. So I was trying to do the opposite of that. And I apologize. If you would like me to bring the emotion back, I will do that. So is that the area, is that what's going wrong? Now, she became incredibly flustered. Her cheeks became beetroot red, so she started white but ended up sort of red by the end of the situation because she realised when that feedback was repeated, it was completely and utterly bonkers and, can I say, also dangerous. But what I learned as the conversation progressed from there is her actual issue is because she didn't know what I was thinking, she was unable to manipulate me. She was trying to work out what I thought was important, what I thought was meaningful, so she could leverage that in the decision making that she had with me. So because she couldn't poke at me, and because she couldn't find any vulnerabilities, because I didn't share my thoughts or my feelings with her, she rendered that a problem. Now, I've later found out that all the other people that worked for her, she used to turn up at their houses at night and invite herself in. Now, she tried that once with Steve and I, and can I say we didn't answer the door because our private household is our private business. So, as you can see, this was absolutely her problem and not my problem because this is a workplace, right? So if somebody in power criticizes you, thank them, take the emotions out, and I know that's really hard to do, okay? And then repeat the feedback back to them. Now, that does a few things. Firstly, it displays respect. You are respectful of their commentary, and also you were listening and you're trying to understand what they're saying to you. But can I say it also then, if it's unfair criticism, reveals the narcissism, the errors, the volatility and the confusion of that situation. So it becomes very much personal rather than professional, and judgmental rather than evidentially based. So when any of us are dealing with critique and criticism from people in power, focus on the substantive issue being raised. Do not accept, do not deny, don't get upset, don't express anger, be factual. And you will come across as reasonable and logical, even if they are not. Okay. 5. Learn another perspective. A great way to handle criticism is to flip it and change it into a conversation. Again, you have to park the emotion, you have to park the hurt. And if this helps you, try and treat the feedback as something disconnected from you, right? So it's not about you, it's about the work. It's not about you, it's about the chapter. It's not about you, it's about that email. It's not about you, it's about that policy, right? So commence with a gentle conversational opener, like, thanks so much for that comment. I think I understand how you've reached that judgment. Now, I probably haven't explained myself explicitly. Now, that sort of commentary, that gentleness, shows that you're willing to change and you're willing to think about the criticism. It also shows that you're willing to see things from the perspective of your critic. It also makes sure that your critic has to be honest and your critic has to be precise. So let me give you an example. Say your PhD supervisor says, I don't like that chapter. Don't like that chapter. Now, that hurts a lot because you've worked really, really hard on that chapter. So you need to park your emotion. Remember, it's not about you, it's about the chapter. They're different. You are not the chapter. Let's talk about the chapter. So ask questions of the supervisor. Activate active listening and find out precisely why they didn't like it. Now, again, this extra information that you're gaining is incredibly beneficial because, okay, they didn't like it, but by giving you the extra information, you can actually change it. You can actually improve the chapter, and that's great. Or conversely, if there's no actual content there, so they can't get beyond, I just don't like it. I just don't like it. Right? So if they don't get beyond that, then you know immediately it's unfair criticism and that person is not going to help you a lot through your candidature. 6, move on, girlfriend. Move on. If the critic is holding their ground and is not giving you any extra information and they're just getting stuck in their right to offer that comment about you, then it is time for you to reclaim your power and move on. So this is another version of the Brabazon noted. So thank you for giving me something to think about going forward. And then you leave the building like Elvis. So whenever you hear me say the phrase going forward, that is really my tell, because you know that I'm really not taking this seriously, right? So I know, and you know, that certain critics want you to be trapped in their web of opinion and emotion and abuse. And if it is unfair criticism, come up with some management speak and move on, girlfriend, move on. 7, understand the source of the criticism. So once you've left that immediate hot moment where the feedback, the comment and critique has emerged, and you've made the determination about is it fair or is it unfair, then there is the next step. For fair criticism, implement it, take it on and report back to that person how you've taken on that criticism and made changes. Fantastic. But if it is unfair criticism, you need to do something else. You need to start to understand the source, the person that summoned that unfair criticism. Understanding the person that offers the criticism means that you start to understand the context around the criticism. So, for example, are they managing some really problematic situations at work or at home? Completely understandable. Are they just jealous of you? Then call a spade a shovel. They're just jealous of you. Knock yourself out. Are they, and again, you just call this out, are they just ambitious? Are they so ambitious that they would throw their own mother under a train to be successful? So you're the least of their worries, but they're using you and hurting you to get on in their career. So if that's what's happening, just call it and understand it. Now, also, do they have a drug? Do they have an alcohol problem? Most of us have worked for alcoholics, and that creates some pretty challenging situations. So if you think that's what's occurring, understand the situation. There is that old cliche that hurt people hurt people. And we've all met those people that just want to hurt other people, and they hurt other people to reinforce their own position. So it is really important to understand the context and understand the person offering the unfair criticism, because if you don't, the situation will escalate. Now, remember the story of Steve and the excrement under his door at work? Yeah. Well, that situation escalated to the point where he was trying to walk home, and he'd be meeting these senior male professors in the car park, and they would be trying to physically hit him, okay? Punch him in the car park. Now, Steve was 6'2" and 15 stone. And these professors, should I say, were a little bit smaller than that. But he was also a pacifist. So whenever these men would be actively punching at him, Steve would stop the punch. And that was the only way he could protect himself. So if there is irrationality in the critique that's emerging, and there's any chance that it moves from words to behaviour, from language to action, then you need to report this. Now, you know, I've done a lot of work. We've done a lot of work together in the last 6 years on bullying and bullying situations. And the research on bullying is very, very clear. We, all of us, need to tell somebody about the behaviour in writing, via email, place, time, date, and if any other people saw the behaviour. Now, it is important we all remember that bullying escalates, okay? It does not stop. It does not reduce. Bullying escalates unless there is an external intervention. And that behaviour is managed by logging with others the behaviour and what has happened. And also, can I say, for other people who have witnessed that behaviour, we, all of us, have to be courageous and also log that behaviour. Manage the criticism in the moment, but out of the moment, have a good hard look at the person who offered that criticism and log the behaviour before it escalates. 8, maintain your self-confidence. I understand that criticism can hurt. It can wound us. It can bruise us, even if we handle the situation well. Now, you are going to have to work pretty hard to maintain your self-confidence. And you're going to have those nasty phrases bumping around your head, you know, like in a pinball. You're going to have those, and you've got to try and find strategies to silence that type of comment. So remember to position the criticism where it belongs. It may be incorrect, it may be abuse, it may be bullying, it may be irrelevant. You know, someone has offered a commentary about your jacket. I really don't like your jacket. I don't like that jacket. Your jacket is irrelevant to the work that you do, so it's irrelevant criticism. Also remember to have a real good look at the person that's offering that feedback to you. Do they actually have the experience, the expertise, and the ability to be offering any commentary on you or any other human being. This is important. Now, if the person offering the commentary, to use a cricketing metaphor, doesn't have the runs on the board, so if they're not respected in this particular field, then any commentary that they offer is irrelevant. They haven't got the background to be offering any comment. Now, Frederick Imbo gave a really great TED talk about not taking criticism to heart. And can I say, he's a referee, sporting referee rather than a journal referee, although both probably, but he's a sporting referee. So he's abused every single Saturday. And he manages critique by realising that the criticism is not about him. He maintains a strong core belief. He knows who he is. So he knows that that criticism is completely unfounded, and he's also empathic and practices self-care. Okay, so the key is to not live in the criticism, not live in the negativity, because it will hurt your health. So remember who you are, and when you feel yourself getting pulled into other people's criticism, then, write a few lists, put them on your phone, put them on post-it notes in your office. And on this list stuff like the 5 things that you've accomplished in your life that you're really proud of. 5 times that you overcame this huge life problem and triumphed, or 5 things you really like about yourself. And it might be that coat that woman doesn't like, but I really like that coat because it's about you. So these are simple lists. But if someone's just said to you, wow, you've got a big butt, you have the biggest butt I've ever seen, you need to be part of CrossFit today. Or, people say stuff like, and this happens, so you're like, you really can't write. Wow, why are you enrolled in a PhD program? You really can't write. Okay, so this is yucky stuff. This hurts, right? So instead of fixating on those phrases, I got a big butt, I really can't write. Instead of fixating on those phrases, go through the lists of the 5 things you've accomplished in your life, the 5 times you had a big obstacle and you overcame that obstacle. That's fantastic. So refresh yourself, center yourself, remember who you are. Number 9. Oh, yes. Avoid the destructively negative people. Now, we've talked a lot in this coaching series about boundaries. To be frank with you, I think boundaries are the crucial trope in managing life and work. And look, as I've aged, I've separated the private and the public, the personal and the professional in my life very, very clearly. And why this matters now, I think, is we've got a mixed generation workforce. Okay, so we've still got a lot of baby boomers in the workforce, Gen X, remember, we've still got a lot of baby boomers in the workforce, and they gained their secondary socialisation with different rules about going around to people's houses and drinking and what you do at Christmas parties and so forth. Now, these behaviours are very much vexed and problematic. So when we open up portals between the private and the public, between our personal life and our professional life, we are allowing criticism to emerge where it's not required, and it's certainly not welcome. No human being has any right ever to offer a commentary about a couple's relationship, or how people are raising children, or how people are doing their housework. That is not your right to offer that commentary. So while we do have to put up with really pushy and negative people in the workplace, because we're being paid to put up with pushy and negative people in the workplace, we are not being paid to put up with these people in our private life. So avoid being with these destructively critical people for 1 minute more than you're paid to be with them. Minimize the time you spend with them. Create distance from them. It amazes me, particularly when someone gets completely fixated on one person treating us disgracefully, that they then don't take concrete steps to move away from them. So construct clear boundaries in your working life. Do not have a coffee with them. Do not have a drink with them. And this will ensure that they do not know any further information about you. And this is crucial. those people must not know what you are thinking, what you are feeling, what is important to you in your life. Because any information you give them, they will use against you. So starve them of information. And 10, don't respond in kind. There's a lot of recent research that shows the consequences of bullying, of name calling and bad behaviour. And the problem is, once we have experienced the name calling and the abuse, we are more likely to do it ourselves, right? So the bullied bully. Those who have been abused, abuse. And of course, this is how workplaces and indeed families become toxic. Now, the word toxic worries me. It's sort of used all the time now, but toxicity needs to be explored as a trope in the workplace. But it's very, very easy when you receive truly dreadful, nasty criticism to bite back and put the venom back at the person. And I understand that. It's very easy to do that and understandable. It is understandable. Now, I've had to manage a fair amount of abuse in my life. And even more, there's been tens of thousands of people who really love telling me about what I'm doing wrong in how I'm living my life. Bless. Now, it will be very, very easy for me to be abusive, to compare their career to mine, compare my CV to their CV, compare their choices to my choices, and gain some easy points. But life is not a game of darts. And we have absolutely no right to tell other human beings how to live their lives. And I'm always conscious when I'm offering feedback, and I force myself to really think this through, that when I'm offering feedback, it comes from a place of rigour and expertise and evidence and kindness. No matter how much you want to score a point or name call or abuse, please don't go there. Please don't go there. We are all lessened whenever there is an abuse or ridicule. We are. And we end up looking like a fool. Let me explain it to you. Let me give an example. So George Dixon wrote in the Washington Post in 1964, and he offered a criticism of the Beatles. Yes, the Beatles. Now, just a reminder, this is 1964. Love Me Do, their first single, was released in December 1962. So the Beatles weren't new as such. Okay, so George Dixon is offering this comment about the Beatles. Quote, "They have a commonplace, rather dull act that hardly seems to merit mentioning. Yet people hereabouts have mentioned scarcely anything else for a couple of days." End of quote. Good on you, George. Now, George's article has not really dated terribly well, has it? And how did the Beatles process George's commentary? They completely ignored it. And that's the point. Mostly, the critics can be ignored, and they should be completely ignored if they're lacking credibility. And maybe through the Beatles, that's a lesson for us all. I wish you love, light, and peace. Tea out.